Broderick Brown with FightSlumlords.com here. We just got in this lawsuit that Trey Songz was sued last week in Los Angeles County Superior Court. Got the lawsuit in, and I want to go through this lawsuit today, and let you know what it means. All right, so essentially what happened was that Trey Songz was at a concert back in 2019, and he basically had an altercation with a bartender. And so the lawsuit lays out what happened that night, and then it assesses what the person's damages are. So let's go through that right now. So back in May of 2019, the plaintiff in this case alleges that Trey Songz was at a concert venue in Hollywood, and the plaintiff in this case was a bartender, and that Trey Songz was sitting on the bar. And it was the concert venue's policy not to allow patrons to sit or stand on the bar. And so the bartender, doing his job, notified Trey Songz a couple times by tapping him that he needed to get down. And so the last time he tapped Trey Songz turned around and punched him. And that's basically the basis of the lawsuit. And so in the lawsuit, it alleges that after Trey Songz punched the bartender, he simply continued to go about his business and watch the concert. From other reports, TMZ, I think, said it was a Nicki Minaj concert, I believe. Maybe it was a Cardi B concert, but it was one of those two's concert that he was attempting to watch, possibly get a better view of from the bar. And so, I like to tell my clients that anyone can sue anyone, and so in this case, the plaintiff is alleging that Trey Songz punched him and that he's incurred damages. So let's go over the damages that he alleges. In paragraph 43 of the complaint, and in paragraph 43 of the complaint, he says that he suffered physical pain, emotional, and psychological injury. It should be noted that he's suing Trey Songz for assault and battery. Now, it's interesting that the plaintiff in this case does not allege what his injuries that he suffered were, nor does the plaintiff allege that if he incurred any economic damages. Economic damages meaning medical bills or wage loss. He simply alleges that he suffered pain and suffering, or like what I like to call harms and losses as a result of being punched by Trey Songz. Now, it's interesting, he also alleges that he suffered punitive damages, and so he's making claims for punitive damages. I don't believe, based upon what's in this 3-page lawsuit, based upon the facts in the 3-page lawsuit, I don't think that the facts amount to punitive damages, but generally speaking, most plaintiffs' attorneys have a strategy of throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. I would anticipate that Trey Songz lawyers will file a motion to strike that portion of the lawsuit, meaning just a motion to get that portion removed because there's no factual allegations which amount to punitive damages. Punitive damages are damages that are meant to punish a defendant, and so they have a heightened standard, and so it's not simply the plaintiff is going to be required to prove more, essentially. And I don't think, based upon what's in the complaint, that it amounts to that. Now, it's interesting that they don't give an amount, and so that's typically standard. And so in most lawsuits, most personal injury lawsuits, they don't give an amount. So I'm not surprised by that. The next thing I want to cover is I think that the only reason why Trey Songz is being sued here is he amounts as a big pocket defendant, meaning they know that if it was indeed Trey Songz, and I'm going to get to that point, but if it was indeed Trey Songz, that Trey Songz has the ability to pay a lawsuit because everyone knows that Trey Songz is worth something. Versus if it was Paul Smith, which is a made-up name, if Paul Smith hit this bartender, I think Paul Smith would have got kicked out of the venue that night. But I don't think the bartender would have sued Paul Smith or anyone that wasn't a celebrity or that he didn't know to have money or believed to have money. Now, what's interesting in the lawsuit, it doesn't really state how they know it's Trey Songz. There appeared to be no interaction before the incident between the plaintiff and Trey Songz, and then after the incident, it appeared that Trey Songz was either kicked out of the venue, escorted from the venue. It doesn't appear that the plaintiff ever went to law enforcement about the incident. So I'm interested to find out why they believe it was Trey Songz. Maybe there were surveillance cameras, maybe there's photos of Trey Songz at the concert at that night. But I'm interested to that factor. Maybe they just know that it was someone that looked like Trey Songz. That's an interesting component. Now, how should Trey Songz respond to this? It's interesting. Like, again, let me back up. He should respond. How he's going to respond is based upon what the valuation is of the lawsuit. In this case, the plaintiff doesn't really allege any medical bills. In fact, the plaintiff's not claiming any economic damages. The plaintiff's only claiming general damages or non-economic damages. And so a case like this, I would probably value at $5,000 to maybe $20,000 on the high side, because the question is that how much would you allow Trey Songz to punch you from a seated position? And so I don't know how tall Trey Songz is, but he doesn't really strike me as that big of a guy. And if you have no medical bills and there was no lost wages, depending on what the photo of the bartender's eye looked like, I just don't know how much it's worth. Because for most people, if you ask them, you know, if I have a blank check and, you know, I'm Trey Songz and I want to punch you in your face, like, how much would you allow me to punch you in your face for? And so if you don't get punitive damages, there's no punishment aspect. So that's how I get to my valuation. If your valuation would be different, let me know in the comments. If you need, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to allow Trey Songz to punch you from a seated position, comment in the chat. If you need less, comment in the chat. But if the value of the case is in that ballpark, meaning if it's $20,000 or less, it may make sense for Trey Songz to settle right away, because this is probably not covered by insurance, and he's going to pay money to his attorney to respond, to conduct discovery, which is basically written questions that both sides will send each other to do depositions. That's all going to cost Trey Songz money. And at the end of it, if he's ultimately going to pay something, it makes sense for him to settle early, because the worst case scenario is for him to hire counsel and they drive up a $20,000 attorney fee bill, and he still's got to pay a settlement amount to the plaintiff. Or if he doesn't pay, if he were to go to trial on this, it may cost him $50,000 to $100,000 to see this case all the way through, depending on what lawyer or law firm he hires. So it may make good business sense for him to simply pay early because it doesn't appear like this case is worth the time. And for the plaintiff, if you have no medical bills, he's going to really have to articulate why his pain and suffering is worth a great deal. So, I mean, my valuation would probably be between 5 and 20. So 5 on the low side, 20 on the high side. And in fact, that if it wasn't Trey Songz on the other end, most attorneys probably wouldn't take this type of cases. I know that occasionally I get cases like this, and I always tell someone, like, yes, you have a case, and yes, your case has value, and, you know, $5,000 is real money, but if the person that hit you doesn't have any money or doesn't have any assets that you can chase, that potential judgment is only worth what the piece of paper is. So those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? And share your thoughts in the chat. Let me know if you feel like Trey Songz is being unfairly targeted. If you guys are interested, I can find a way to link a copy of the complaint to the description. Let me know if you want to hear more content like this. Thank you so much for listening to this video. Again, I'm Broderick Brown at FightSomeLawyers.com. Have a good one.